I work at the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva as part of a non-governmental organization called the International Humanist and Ethical Union. We have been speaking and writing against the UN resolution combating defamation of religion for about 7 years. The concept was originally put forward in 1999 by the organization of the Islamic Conference, an alliance of 57 Islamic states. Not only is it no longer legitimate to criticize Islam, we have been told in the Human Rights Council that we are not to mention Islam. We may not use the word Sharia. This is the leading human rights institution in the world, and that attack on free expression is something which we have to resist, because to defend people who are being persecuted by Sharia law, I have to attack the system. If you call your system of law the Holy Sharia, and you're saying to attack it is Islamophobic, you're using religion to restrict freedom of speech. And of course it didn't help our case within the Human Rights Council at all that Ireland just recently passed a blasphemy law. That was really a very unhelpful step. This year, the organization of the Islamic Conference thought they might actually lose the resolution if they tabled it again. So for the first time, the OIC instead sponsored an alternative resolution which was welcomed by everyone because it endorses the protection of the believers, not their beliefs. However, the UN Pakistani delegates made it clear that they were not dropping their concerns about defamation of religion. Since the current resolution has not been overruled, it still stands. And it's going to come up again and again. Probably next time will be in December at the General Assembly in New York. Islamic states would like us all to accept Islamic values, respect for Islam, for the Quran, for the Prophet Muhammad, and to impose that within international law. And that is where the battleground really is. If you go to a Muslim country and you start preaching Christianity, which it's your right to do under international law, you would be in deep, deep trouble. There is no freedom of religion in these countries. In January this year, Salman Taseer, the governor of the Punjab in Pakistan, has spoken out against blasphemy, saying, "I think it's probably time that the blasphemy laws were reviewed." For that, he was murdered by his own bodyguard. Similarly, the only Christian member of the government in Pakistan, the Minister on Minority Issues, Mr. Bhatti, was murdered for daring to criticize the blasphemy laws. In response, the Pakistani ambassador said the murders of Taseer and Bhatti had nothing to do with the blasphemy laws, which was clearly incorrect. A few months later in March, the Pakistani delegate to the Human Rights Council, who was speaking on behalf of all of the Islamic states, spoke about the burning of a copy of the Quran by some idiot pastor in Florida. He made a huge issue of this, as though it was tantamount to another 9/11. He simply saw this lunatic action by one small church as a massive attack by the West on Islam. The burning of one copy of the Quran. But he made no mention whatsoever of the fact that the week before, the Iranian authorities confiscated and burned 200 Christian Bibles. A week later, we saw 30 UN staff and others being massacred by an Islamic mob in Afghanistan. They had nothing whatever to do with any disrespect to Islam, but they were murdered in protest to the burning of one copy of the Quran by this idiot pastor in Florida. Now that gives you an idea of the kind of balance of priorities that exists. Do these people actually value the Quran higher than human life?
Pakistan, you have the floor.
You have already given a ruling on the discussion of Sharia law in this council. We have strong objections on any discussion, any direct or indirect discussion, any out of context selective discussion on the Sharia law in this council.
Thank you. Distinguished President of Egypt.
Mr. President, I appeal to my colleague not to accept any discussion on the Sharia law in this council because it will not happen. And we will not take this lightly.
It is no surprise then, my dear brothers and sisters, that when you look at the Muslim world, you see that we, 1.2 billion Muslims, have just 10 Nobel Prizes to our name. And our Jewish brethren, who we spent so much time fighting and arguing with, 12 million Jews in the world, and they have 150 Nobel Prizes to their name. And then we'll wonder why we're losing battles. We're not being outfought, we're being outthought, my dear brothers and sisters. We're not underarmed, we're undereducated.
You went through metal detectors to come to a debate in New York. I mean, talk about
That's because it takes one person to get through those metal detectors and blow us up. It doesn't mean the majority of people are terrorists.
Let me finish. The people that I am protected against, and you as an audience too, the individual who wants to kill me because I'm an apostate of Islam is inspired to do that from the scripture of Islam, the example of the Prophet Muhammad, the clergy that preached to him, and the reward he will get in the hereafter that is promised in the Quran. All of that is Islamic. The sooner you admit that,
I tell you what he's inspired
the sooner
by.
you admit that, the sooner I can get rid of my bodyguard.
You're not the only one on this panel. I have an Al-Qaeda death threat on my head too because I'm saying what I'm saying. And what I'm saying...
This is a part of multiculturalism. We're not offending anybody. Excuse me, I'm offended every day of my life by religion. You don't see anyone running to my aid. You know, we can criticize communism, we can criticize fascism, we can criticize all sorts of ideologies. You criticize religion, you're putting your life on the line. You're putting your career on the line. We've seen it. I don't want to be killed. I don't want to live under any sort of security. I want to be free. See, I need to shut up.